Hey,
Hey, what's
what's
going on, y'all?
Happy
It's your
Friday.
girl. Oh yeah, happy Friday. Happy
happy
Friday. Jumping the gun.
happy Friday, happy
Happy
Friday,
Friday.
everybody.
All right, family, what's going on? It's your girl, your cousin, Tanisha Peoples Live with my homeboys in good trouble, Mr. Jason B. Allen and Mr. Nehemiah Frank, and we are the trio that talks their real shit every Friday. How y'all doing? How was y'all week?
I mean, it's better since I see y'all, and I'm being dead honest. Like this is the most smiling I've done this week is seeing y'all, and I'm being 100% completely honest with you. It has been rough
That's
for
that
me.
self-care.
Um,
Yeah.
we're dealing with a lot of stuff here in Oklahoma that we're going to get into a little bit later. So,
It's been a week. I'll echo that. I'm standing on grace. That's what I've been trying to just hold on to. But there's been a lot going on in the world. I had a classmate who passed away. Jovita Moore just passed away here in the city of Atlanta. So there's been a lot of loss, but it's been everyday life that people are just dealing with. But it is good to see you guys and be connected. To the show today. And of course, it is election season. This is the last day of early voting. If you are watching in the city of Atlanta, if you have family in Atlanta, you could text them right now and tell them to vote today. Possibly for someone named Jason B. Allen and maybe Larry Carter and also maybe Royce Mann, who all just happen to be running for office here in the city of Atlanta. So that's my public service announcement and my check-in.
Did you say maybe definitely vote for Jason, definitely vote for Royce, and definitely vote for Larry? Y'all get on it. Civic engagement.
I couldn't say it, but I wanted somebody too. So that was perfect. Yes,
I got
definitely
you.
do it.
I
that
got
was
you.
an endorsement. Oh my God.
Right, right,
That
right,
was a personal endorsement, by the way. Personal.
right. Y'all, that's my surge,
I
sis. I'm
love
in our
when that
house.
stuff
We're having
happens.
a self-care Friday. I'm still working, but we having a self-care Friday with brunch. So, just in case y'all need some tips on Fridays, get together with your homies, have a little something to eat, a little something to drink. I ain't drinking
That's
on the
good.
job, right, babe? I'm just, but get that's that self-care that we need as black and brown people
Right.
to, take care of ourselves. So I'm doing that, and I'm happy to be here with you guys as well. And as always, welcome to everybody tuning in. We appreciate y'all. So let's go ahead and jump into the tea.
Ooh.
All right, where we want to go first, y'all? What do we want to go first? We want to start with some
Black dads are first.
Yes.
heads our first. All
We
right,
got to talk about the black
let's go
dad.
with the Louisiana story. So I don't know. You guys may have seen it. It's been circulating for about a week and a half now. But this story about this Louisiana dad's team, they come together and support local high school students after there were multiple arrests after a violent week of fighting. And it's a bittersweet story because we know that these things happen in our communities, in our schools, and it's tough. Kids are dealing with a lot in this pandemic, a lot of emotions bottled up, and sometimes they take those things out on their peers, and they take them out on educators or whoever is in
Right.
their place, people closest to them. And so we don't know the circumstances behind these altercations, but the good thing is that we have black dads step up and intervene to stop these arrests and stop these fights. So what do y'all think about that? What are y'all thoughts?
I mean, I think it's amazing. And the kids are having a positive response about, having these dads in the school. And so if the kids like it and they feel that it is a safer space for them, right? Versus having a school police officer, policing their campus,
Mm,
which drives up their anxiety and depression. Um, I think it's great. It's healthy. It's a healthy thing that's happening in Louisiana. I support it 100%. I think school districts across the country need to be knocking the doors down, flooding emails in to the superintendent, the principal of the school, seeing how they can lift that same template and implant it into their school districts because it's clearly working.
yeah.
Yeah, I say it's a great story. It proves that we need to invest in family engagement.
Right.
When I was a district administrator, I led the male engagement initiative for our family engagement department, and it was proven research by a black woman, Dr. Karen Mapp, who has informed us that engagement actually works in improving the relationships between communities and schools. And so we need more people to be proactive about, doing that work, being more intentional, investing the dollars and doing it. We know it works. Real Dads Reads, Father Incorporated are some of the profound gentlemen. There are so many initiatives that public schools and communities could be taken advantage of. But we have to make sure that we're doing our research on the organizations, because what we know too well is that organizations that don't have figureheads that look like us, or that are not even Black dads or Black men, are getting the money to do this work. And then, of course, it's a takeover, right? So it's not really effective, and it's not really reflecting what we see in the article. So those are my tips and also my feedback.
I wanna jump in on I wanna first of all lift Marissa's comment in the chat. If this can happen across the country with our Black and brown men helping out in schools, it would be amazing.
Yep.
Absolute facts. Hard facts. So because Neo, to tie into what you said earlier, when we think about the conversations around defunding police and we think about the school to prison pipeline, this is a small but effective remedy and an effective tactic that we can implement across schools in America, and also strengthen our Black and brown communities if we employ parents and we solve their problem, Jason, as you mentioned, around parent engagement, because there's been this long-standing battle between educators and parents about whose responsibility is it to raise kids. And so we have parents and educators in the school environment with, 24, well, not 24/7, but 7 to 8 hours hands on deck on kids, and educators getting paid, parents are getting paid. Look at that magic. That's some magic. That's some magical shit. So I think that, we can take this just small gesture of engagement and small gesture of love and intervention and prevention, and use that in our schools to make our students and families' experiences better. And then we won't have this issue of, again, the school to prison pipeline, excessive force and excessive presence of law, or what do they call it? The officers, I can't remember their names, but
Resource officers.
Resource officers, yeah. So I think if you're an advocate, we got a lot of advocates watching. Definitely push that out.
Right.
But let me just say this one last reminder: check your advocates too, because everyone who says they're an ally, they're not an ally. And remember, this is a $1 billion industry. The school to prison pipeline, high stakes testing that force children from schools to prison. And a lot of these organizations that are saying, rah, 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 I'm for children, I'm for equity, I'm for the people. Check where their funding is coming from, please, and thank you. Okay.
All right, y'all. We got to cut the tea a little bit short. This is TDRS. We run this how we want to. We gonna remix it. So we're gonna bring our guest on because they have to cut out. One of our guests particularly is doing his public service duties as an advocate and activist, and just someone that supports the community. So we're gonna go ahead and bring them on and get to our conversation so we can let them get back to their services. Jay, you want to introduce our guest for today?
Yeah, listen, I'm not even going to take a lot of time. I actually had the opportunity to teach with Larry Carter. He's a former teacher here in Atlanta Public Schools. This brother has been involved in the community. If you live in the city of Atlanta, you know that a true leader is involved in the neighborhood planning unit. I'll let him add some more things about himself, but he's also currently running for city council. Royce, Mann, is no stranger to the Bright Bean family because he's a part of the Atlanta Student Coalition. You've seen him on town halls. You've seen him in our videos advocating for social justice, advocating for women, advocating for children, advocating for students, advocating for just about anyone that's a human being that deserves decency and respect. He has been doing the work, and he is going to be the youngest person hopefully elected to the school board to actually represent the student voices. And so he's also running for school board as well. So these brothers have been doing the work, and that's it. I'll let them
Jason, can you tell us how young Royce is?
Royce is going on 20 years old, but he's 19. He'll be 20 sooner than you think. But yeah, he is 19, and he's definitely not new. Go ahead.
I'm actually 20 today.
Oh, see? Wow. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Hey, shout out to the Scorpios.
Yes, Scorpio season.
Yes. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Show Royce some love. Tell him happy birthday in the chat. Make him feel good today. Make
He
him
probably
feel
would
real
say
good.
donate to his campaign. That would
Yes,
be
donations, spreading the word, making sure to vote. Those are the best gifts.
Right. And if I can just be honest though, Royce, I've been following you for a little while and I'm just like so impressed with you. The fact that, you know, you mustered the courage to be able to run for an elected position so young is just extremely impressive. So I have met a lot of famous dignitaries across the country and around the world, and I am actually fanning you right now. And I'm almost, I think this is just really cool. So kudos to you.
Thank you so much. And I'm so glad we've finally been able to connect face to face virtually after chat.
Right.
So y'all tell us a little bit about yourselves and why you running for city council seats and you know what you
Board.
hope to accomplish. City board. Sorry, I'm mixing up the language today. I ain't had nothing to drink with y'all, but
it's the Friday. It's the Friday.
Right.
That's what's happening.
You want to take it, Larry?
Sure thing. Thank you. So I'm Larry Carter. I've been in District 4 since 2009. I started in Ashview Heights as a community activist organizing. I was the president of the neighborhood association. Ashview Heights today is a lot different than it was in 2009. We had about a 45% vacancy rate, and people just felt disengaged because their voices hadn't been heard. So I was going to Georgia State, and I was just like, I don't understand. This neighborhood used to be so great and historic, and these historic colleges are across the street. How come the people aren't being taken care of? So from that work, you know, beautifying the community. I didn't have money. I was a college student, so I sold stuff out of my house to buy a lawnmower so we could cut the grass of the vacant houses. And that really inspired other people to get out and do. And so they started working in their yard. So it kind of was a momentum that built from the ground up. I served as vice chair of MPUT for a few years from there, just understanding how the city and the citizens engage and work. Then I moved over to West End and I served on the board over there, realizing that West End was moving forward, but some of the people in West End, their voices still were being left out. So really advocating to make sure that the least of us had a spot at the table. I think I'm running because I want to take the privilege that I've gained to definitely make access for people who don't have the same privileges. Atlanta's affordability is waning. On my street, 5 years ago, you could buy a house for 150,000. Now you have to have $500,000 to get into the neighborhood. High prices follow high taxes, which tax people out. It might not be the intent, but it's the impact. We have to start thinking about the impact of our actions. Like you can mean well, but if your impact is a negative impact, it's just as bad as our enemies. So we have to start, you know, having the backwards design, just like we do in the classroom. What is our goal? Now let's design a path to get there, if that makes sense. And that's what I want to do in District 4.
That's good. I mean, we moved to Stone Mountain because out of Atlanta because we were like, oh, well, we can probably get, you know, more house because right now the market is horrible. And so that was the reason for our move.
Like in just down the street, a house just listed today for $850. So they're probably gonna get the
in that
$850.
historically Black neighborhood. Unbelievable.
And it's a super modern house. I mean, it's a beautiful house, don't get me wrong, I'm not hating, but they also had to get the council to approve them to build that to get the differences. So when you have leaders who don't see forward, they just see what's in front of them, like, oh yeah, we want property values to go up, but there's negative impacts to legacy neighbors that come with higher property values, like our taxes.
I want to jump in and ask a question right quick, and this will definitely connect to Royce. We are seeing a lot of people. I know that the numbers came out at about 70% of our workforce in essential areas are not returning back to work. I was out in the community yesterday in the rain, knocking on doors, and one of the ladies was like, yeah, I mean, I don't mind talking because I don't have to go to work because my job was trying to harass me and they were doing A, B, and C. And I said, you know what? I won't be back. And I was like, but ma'am, you just told me you have kids. Like, what are we doing here? But people are not going back to work. So as someone who's aspiring to be on city council, Royce, as someone who's a young person in your generation, is definitely not with Um, I was about to cuss and I had to let me change that terminology, but they're not with it at all. And so they're like, you think we're gonna come work for you and you're gonna tell me how to wear my hair and I can't have a nose ring and I have to look
Yeah.
like this and I have to be this and do this just so that you can pay me for me bringing my talent to you. And so your generation is like, no, I ain't doing that. So we can start with Larry and maybe go to Royce, but I would love to see, if you are elected, how are we going to actually re-engage the workforce and make sure they're prepared and ready to, actually help us be sustainable as a country?
Well, I think the shift has to happen. You have to pay people a living wage. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So why am I coming to work if transportation costs and childcare are so high that I'm in debt for working? I think we have to really shift. One of my things I want to do in District 4 to help the small businesses is really leverage the money that we have to hire young people, give them a
That's good.
stipend on top of what these small businesses can pay so they can grow their business in their margin lines while also young people can learn hands on how to run a business. So they're not just going to be workers, but this is like an internship to learn about entrepreneurship. So we're building businesses from the ground up, but also engaging our youth in an opportunity to make money so they can sustain themselves and their families. Sorry,
Yeah,
Royce, I'll leave it to you. I don't want to take too much.
I totally agree. I think, the two biggest lowest hanging fruits are, raising wages, ensuring everybody has a livable wage, and affordability, affordable housing, affordable living overall. I think when it comes to education, there's so much potential for expanding workforce development, really supporting Atlanta's new college and career academy, but also ensuring that what they offer is integrated into all of our schools. I saw a picture of
That's
the
good.
directory at the college and career academy, and it's so cool seeing, you know, uh, a directory at a school with like arrows to this way for carpentry, that way for nursing, this way for, mechanical engineering. And that's what all schools, all high schools at least, should look like. um, what you were hitting on with, internships and work-based learning, that's something that I had the privilege to do when I was in high school. I did work-based learning. I actually did an unpaid internship with a state representative, but you can also do paid work through that same program.
That's
And
good.
so definitely expanding that and really ensuring that all students are aware of that at an early age, and that caregivers and parents are, so that they can really plan, for how students are going to be engaged in those opportunities.
Right.
And
Royce, I really like the fact that you said all students, like, you're conscious that, not every school district, every school does not have the same type of opportunities as
totally,
some of the wealthiest schools districts
yeah.
in Georgia or across the country.
And even in the district, you see those inequities, those
Right.
disparities. I mean, when it comes to the CTAE, career technical agricultural education pathways that are offered in APS, there are great disparities in terms of how many pathways are offered. At my school, for example, Midtown High School, formerly Grady, uh, we had about 8 pathways. In South Atlanta, they had 4. I think in Carver, there are 2. And so,
Hmm.
in these communities where students need these options the most, where students, very likely may not have the resources to, pursue a post-secondary education immediately or at all, or just don't want to, they're not getting, you know, these options and exposure to the other opportunities that they
That's
need.
good.
Can I jump back to or round some things up real quick, because one thing that's been interesting to me all week is this conversation about the Great Resignation, where they're saying that over 4 million Americans have quit their jobs during the pandemic, right? And so I'm like, and this is obviously causing a problem in the economy, because that's why we have the supplies shortage, and we have ships just sitting in the ocean, and we don't have truck drivers to move them. Like, it's causing all kind of problems within the economy. And so when you think about things like livable wage and the poverty threshold and access to jobs and stuff like that. And people are wondering why people aren't going out to get these jobs. And in my mind, I'm like, I don't blame these people when you don't have a livable wage. And so it's like you have the option to choose between receiving government assistance versus going somewhere and slaving yourself to death to get paid pennies and not even be able to survive on those pennies. And so when we think about running for office locally and expand that to a national view and tying this into the Joe Biden's recent American Families Act, what are they missing? Because we have people that, again, we have jobs available, but people don't want to work those jobs. And as you mentioned, some people don't have the skills. We don't even have access to those technical programs that used to exist in schools so that people can go out and have trades as a career pathway and not go to college and, get themselves in debt. So I want to round all those things up and kind of get y'all perspective on that, because it's obviously trickling down into our communities that were already poor. And now if ever they decide to cut government assistance off, they're going to go back to these jobs that don't have a livable wage. So what are y'all thoughts on that?
So like I was saying with the stipendizing, I think is important to think about a lot of the assistance. You can't be doing anything to get assistance. Well, you have three people working three jobs to survive. Like in Atlanta, you have to make $19 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom apartment where the minimum wage is still like $7.25.
Wow.
That's the reality. Like I argue with my friends who are small business owners because they're in a situation where they're stuck between we're not making enough revenue to pay people more, but at the same time, people aren't showing up to work. So they're having to go into work and work. And like I tell them, until we get to a point where we might have to pay a little bit more. But what's happening in Atlanta is tech is coming in. So though people are not getting paid, it's a greater divide because when tech industry comes in, the economy is flipped upside down. So imagine bringing 10,000 people making over $200,000 into this economy, because that's what's happening. Cisco's bringing their headquarters, Visa's bringing 1,000 jobs, Microsoft is building a hub here. They already have 2 buildings in Midtown. Facebook, Twitter's expanding, Airbnb is building a hub here. So all of this tech is converging on Atlanta. So if you think we're in a awkward situation now, the median income is going to rise. So that means that the poverty level is going to be higher. So you're going to have teachers, firefighters, police officers starting work under the poverty level. So we're going to have to retool and reinvest our money in different ways in the future. Since if you look back in the business chronicle of AJC, since January, every month a new tech company is talked about. They're building their hub here. So in 2022, we're going to see a large shift in our economy. South Downtown, they're taking 10 acres to build a tech focused place. So we have to retool our workers to meet the needs of those tech jobs. And that's what we're going to have to start thinking about is like, yeah, industry is going to have to change. No longer are we might not have servers. We might not have people at Kroger. We have to do the self-checkout because they need to be preparing for the tech industry that's coming so they can be more competitive in this market, if that makes sense.
I want to make this connection because it does. A lot of the inequities that we're seeing economically are definitely connected to education. Royce went to Midtown High School, which is in the heart of the city, one of the most diverse schools. And I would love your thoughts on this, Royce, because what we are seeing, much to what Larry has said, is that the tech companies, a lot of these agencies that have the major dollars to make these investments and pay, the jobs that people can afford to live in a $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 home. To be quite honest, they're not going to get those jobs at certain schools in the city of Atlanta. So as someone who is running for school board, seeing these grave economic inequities in our city and also knowing that there are grave inequities within our schools, what are your thoughts on ways that we can actually improve that so that students who would be working in grocery stores or who would be in retail or who would be in other areas that are being heavily hit how were they going to be able to survive and excel in a changing workforce?
Yeah, great question. There are a few things. More broadly, I think one thing we need to explore is universal basic income. There are, uh, a couple of candidates I know for city council who've discussed that. I know municipal governments, other places in the country have started pilot programs. I think it would be really great to start a pilot program here in Atlanta supporting some of our residents in poverty through a UBI program. And beyond that, I think it's really about closing this vast skills gap that we see between what we're teaching students and the skills that are sought after in the workforce. And we end up seeing a lot of these more intangible skills, creativity, problem solving, design thinking, and technological skills, digital literacy, all of that um, is at the center of most of the highest paying jobs these days, and those skills are not taught in our schools. And so something I would propose is creating a permanent curriculum relevancy advisory council that would bring together professionals from different fields that are booming here in Atlanta, folks from our universities, our technical schools, folks that provide any of these many different opportunities for students to pursue post-secondary, bring them all to a table and have them routinely looking over all aspects of the curriculum and finding areas where we can get some of these relevant skills in to existing coursework. I also think that creating a really strong pipeline between every individual school in the district, every individual cluster, and uh, these industries, especially working with city council to, approach and have discussions with companies before they come here to try and get, some sort of commitment or at least be on the same page about creating that pipeline, whether it's, hosting career fairs at every single high school and ensuring that every single student who wants to has that opportunity to talk one-on-one with somebody from that company. There are a lot of different ways that we can really leverage these companies that want to come here, but do so in a way that actually creates opportunities for students in Atlanta.
I want to go back to as you were talking, I was processing this UBI conversation and thinking about this government assistance overall, right? And for me, I'm kind of on the fence because I feel like it can create a situation in which it has where people are dependent on government, right? Um, Dependent on government for some kind of income or assistance, and it creates it's kind of a crutch. And so we have this system where you have this government assistance and it's paid through taxes from taxpayers nationally, and so it almost in itself, and I'm thinking through this, y'all. Don't beat me up and then like try to follow me. But I'm just wondering, like when we think about that UBI, we think about universal basic income. How long should there be stipulations on how long families receive UBI? Um, and is there a component of that program in which when we talk about investment in education and investment in different types of education, so that we again create we develop young people and families so that they can sustain, on their own? Should there be some kind of stipulations or, cutoffs or whatever with UBI and government assistance overall and have those resources redirected to education?
Mm.
Most
Long story
definitely.
short, long story short.
I directly to that point, I think a great starting area for UBI would be families with students in public schools. Basically, providing compensation for the time that the student is spending in school learning, that would be to support the student. Of course, if they're not 18, it would be tough to give the money directly to the students. So giving it to caregivers, with some sort of accountability in place to ensure that it does go towards students. I think that would be a great way to sort of unite these two ideas. And then you're ensuring that the students, when they get to the end of their educational journey, that they have at least something there to be able to just get started in their career path. Because if you don't have those resources, you can't even just get off the ground when you're after you finish high school. And so I think definitely targeting a UBI program to specifically benefit students would be great.
I want to say this. I actually think that the money should be allowed to get to the students in some form or another, whether it covers their student activity fees. If it's a student that wants to be in the band and they can't afford to be in the band, if there are students who, want to get into a program that can actually teach them something, that they may not be getting in their school, I think that there are ways that it can definitely benefit and reach the students directly because, or the money should be designed in a way where a percentage of it is used to help the students get what they're needed, whether the parents have to get a tutor for their child, they have to enroll them in a program. So at least we know that the money is going back into helping, the students be able to build and develop and be self-sustained, because that should be a part. There are always going to be people that need assistance from the government, but we should not have everyone, or we should not have a large majority of our society depending on that, because socially that's not good. It's not good at all. So I know I'm looking at the time, but also just to the point of, this is something I want to ask both of you guys. I have been showing my students some clips from the Jetsons, and I was like, yeah, this came out in the 80s. They were saying that this is how we're supposed to be living now, and we're not quite there yet. Larry made a good point about how a lot of these major tech companies and, development companies are coming to Atlanta, but they're coming to a lot of cities across the nation. How do we really elevate ourselves to get to that kind of technology where we may not need a workforce? And what does that look like? So I wanted to see you guys' thoughts on how do we get to the Jetson era? And is this the start of it now from what we're seeing?
I want to let Royce go because Royce has to hop soon. So
Yeah.
we want to let our guests get in.
That's tough. And I wonder if that's really where we want to go, because we see too often with technological advancements the effects that has on our planet, on marginalized communities, in widening economic disparities. And so it's really hard to be forward thinking in that way when we don't feel confident that we can move forward equitably and in a way that sustains our planet.
Yeah, this Mark Zuckerberg released a thesis yesterday on Facebook about this metaverse. What it sounds a lot like is, it sounds like the Matrix, where they're gonna hologram people into your living room and all that stuff. And so when we think about this whole advancing technology, everything being, AI and all, I don't know, it's creepy as hell. It's creepy as hell. It's giving me those movies, those end of the world movies, like There's a Reset. And baseline, it is the replacement of the human workforce and just human capability for technology. And so, as Roy said, when you think about what that translates to in our communities, that means that people that relied on jobs maybe at McDonald's or unfortunately Walmart or whatever the case may be, they'll be replaced by computers. And so I think that ultimately that will widen equity gaps, and create even more desperate situations than what we're in now. And so what that might be the end of days, because we've seen people when they get to desperate points when they can't eat, they can't feed their families, they can't pay their bills, they result to very negative things, bad things. And we've seen what happens in the movie where you have these wars between the haves and the have-nots. And if we keep pushing things to a point where it's just all technology and no human capital, we go create a situation of greater inequity, greater struggle, and it's gonna be a day when people rise up and they get tired of it. And what would that look like? It's gonna be destruction.
Wow. That's very interesting. Very, very interesting responses. I just wanted to throw that out there. We've been really having my middle school students and and then I didn't want to tell my age because I was watching the Jetsons and the Flintstones in the 80s. But yes, that was a good point. And I like to let my students know I'm not that old. But we have to be very mindful of how our society is advancing. And what does it look like? It's a good question to think about, especially in thinking about global warming and going back to some of the environmental justice issues that we have been uplifting. And is poverty something that we can really eradicate? That's what I'm going to put out to those who are viewing and those who will view this conversation. Is poverty something that we are strategically keeping in place? And I always say that poverty makes money. And so what is it making money for? And what is the ultimate goal of that? And who actually really knows? Yeah. So
all capitalism.
Royce, did you have any final words? I know it's getting to be about 12:40 before you have to hop off. Did you have any final words you wanted to share with the people?
It's been a pleasure engaging in this conversation. I agree with most of what's been said. I look forward to going back and watching where y'all go with the rest of this discussion. Yeah, if y'all want to check out more about my campaign, you can visit royceforatlanta.com. You can also follow me at Royce for Atlanta on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And yeah, I agree that capitalism is the issue. I'm not fully opposed to all forms of capitalism, but when we live in a capitalist society and we have poverty like we have it and inequities like we do, it's clearly not working. So
that's good.
Something's got to change.
Something has to change. You're right.
All right. Thanks, y'all.
All right, thanks.
No problem. Wishing you well.
Thank you.
Well, now it's just the two of us. It's just the two of us. Neo is having some tech issues, but we are close to the hour, and I think that the conversation has been so important. I think it uplifts what I tell my students. You have to do your research on people who are wanting to serve the public because everybody has an agenda and their own interests. And I just am still dwelling in that space of how a lot of the tech companies are moving into our cities. And they're basically taking over, and developers are buying residential property and buying homes from that. I mean, we just have to ask ourselves, this notion of an American dream is so that the working class and the everyday citizen can have access to what? Land, stability, income. And so it seems as if we're taking that away from everyday people. We're taking their homes away. We're taking away their ability to make an equitable wage. We're taking away their ability to be able to take care of themselves and have, the fresh food that they need, access to clean water. We did get a chance to go into this part about inequities, but to spell that out, we have children in Atlanta who don't have access to clean water in their schools. We had students on TikTok. So shout out to Tanisha, our activist, director and supporting in Atlanta. And we were able to work with students who created a TikTok video. I don't even know how TikTok. I still have not created a TikTok.
You should have hit that to pull up, Jay.
And really exposed the Atlanta public schools with that should have been one of our hot topics. Right now, I'm thinking about it. They really exposed the school board on the allowance of this, and we started school in August. And this just happened at the October board meeting, and students were like, "Listen, enough is enough. Y'all not listening to us. It's not working." And so the young people of this generation, I have a lot of hope in, and I'm probably thinking that people said that about my generation, well, our generation, and others before us. And I want us to not just continue to have hope. I want us to actually have change and like to see progress in the area. So that's my statement on that. I was glad to have Royce on as a student activist, and also Larry, who is someone who is going into public service but has been a teacher. And I think teachers can save the world, y'all. That's just my thought.
Yeah. I mean, definitely co-signing all of that. My mind is just stuck on, again, the situation that we're in. There's a lot going on with the economy. We see, again, so many Americans out of work, and out of work on their own. And then we have this $1 trillion act that's coming, and it's leaving out some things that could be beneficial for the Black community. So saying all that to say is, yeah, we got to stay woke. We got to stay educated. We got to stay aware, because right now, just again thinking about this Great Resignation, where there's so many supports or so much financial assistance because of the pandemic. Nothing in America is free. As long as government assistance has been alive, there's been a cost for that assistance somewhere, hidden somebody. And so while, again, we have this moment in time where we're getting all this support, that's going to come back in a way to haunt us. And so I just want us to think about how we're preparing. Are we stacking our money right now? Are we thinking about business plans? Are we educating ourselves? Are we working towards something better than what we have in this moment, and not leaning on this country to carry us? That's where I am. So stay woke, y'all. Understand
Main idea, since I think that you hit it, you hit it right.
Mm-hmm.
The Build Back Better Act. That sounds so much like Make America Great Again.
Is it American Families? It's a whole bunch of them.
That's it. I mean, American Rescue, the Build Back Better. It all sounds the same. It sounds like Make America Great Again. Because when was America? If you ask the right person, when was America ever great? Let's build back better. Better from what? If I was homeless, if I've been poverty, if I can't make an equitable wage, what am I building back better to? And so we got to ask ourselves again, the people that we're putting in office, that we're electing, this is, a big election season in our local elections, and it starts there. People are not connected. And so then when it's like we get to the top, it's like, that's not how this works, y'all. Build from the bottom up. Like, come on, bottom up, right? That's how you build any type of structure. And so we got to be mindful of how we are actually building and being engaged in this process and doing our own research, our own fact check. I mean, let me say this, sis. It's not hard to fact check anyone, because here's the reality. Yeah, we are all doing it every day on social media. Somebody make a statement, here you go making a comment. Oh no, baby, you wrong. Oh no, she was here at this time. I got the receipt. However you want to form that, you are doing a fact check. You're doing your research because you want to know what you're talking about to prove your point. We got to do the same thing with the people that actually have the influence on how we live, how we play, how we interact, how we socialize, how we survive. You got to use that same method. So that's the teacher in me, but I want to just throw that out there. Any barrier we can say that people are not engaged and informed, I could give you an example of how people are engaged and informed, and why can't we use that to make sure you're engaged and informed on the actual things that are barriers to your success? That's all I'm saying. We got to think differently about it.
Hey, think differently, act differently, and we will have different.
Yes.
So with that, we about to head out on this Friday. We appreciate y'all spending a few minutes with us as we chopped it up with elected officials or aspiring elected officials in
public servants.
Public servants. There we go.
Yes, because they are actually doing the work.
Normalize that, public service and not politicians. So yeah, y'all, we about to get out of here. Y'all keep doing the work. This is Tanisha Peoples and Jason B. Allen, and we are two that talk that real shit. Neo is struggling with internet problems right now, but we'll be back. So y'all be good. Keep doing the work.